1930s, at the Institute of Clinical Chemistry in Switzerland, a doctor named Paul Kuchkov conducted studies to find the distinction between raw living food and cooked food, to find out if our immune system would give off something called leukocytosis, which is the immediate white blood cell reaction that our immune system sends off when it identifies a foreign object or a foreign invasive organism coming into our body. It sends off basically artillery force to go and combat that invasive organism. And what he found out was that when we have a disproportionate quantity of organic living food in ratio to cooked food, which would be deemed in those days molecularly disturbed food, that white blood cell response would become more potent. It would become more overburdening, and it would cause an immune reaction. And this was a very potent, powerful piece of information that led a lot of the raw food movement ever since then. Remember, this is the 1930s. And we're talking about building the immune system, building the fortification machine of our body and protecting ourselves from the onslaught of toxicity and stress-inducing influences in our world. We want to essentially protect ourselves from the mitochondrial level. So the cellular mechanism in our body is protected. It's strong. It's not breaking down. It's not oxidizing because of stressful influences in our world. One of the keys here is incorporating a more dominant amount of living, organic, raw plant food. And when I say that, I'm not necessarily talking about like raw cookies or raw brownies or whatever kind of mimicking raw food that we might have. Although those are great snack foods, that's not really what we're talking about. We're talking about vibrationally charged food. We're talking about food that has that mana, that prana, that life force, that literally has biophotonic energy in it that can be measured by something like a Kirlian camera, for example, or other ways of analysis. Anyways, we're talking about food like wild food, for example, vegetables. We're talking about water-rich fruit. We're talking about soaked nuts and seeds. We're talking about superfoods and whole food concentrated powders that have all their essential cofactors that aren't isolated vitamins. We're talking about powerful adaptogenic tonic herbs. And let's touch on that for just a second here. When we talk about building our adaptogenic system, we're talking about the second tier of our immune system, which is our adaptive immune system. That's basically like the intelligence governing agency of our immune system. So when the front tier of our immune system is no longer able to counterbalance the influences that are penetrating our biology, then the second tier, which is our white blood cells, has to go to action. And we need to learn how to build the intelligence mainframe of our white blood cells, of our second tier adaptive immune system. And the best way we found out how to do that is to have a balanced and nutritious diet, of course, to have an active lifestyle, but more to the point, to include adaptogenic substances into our body. And those would be adaptogenic tonic herbs. And the 3 tonic herbs that I recommend above all else for this specific subject are reishi mushroom, chaga mushroom, and astragalus. These 3 mushrooms, you could create an immune fortifying formula just like they would in Chinese herbalism, ancient traditional Chinese herbalism. They didn't just do one herb for different conditions or different preventative aspects. They would actually create a combination, a collaboration, a formula to actually potentiate the effects of each herb that they put together with. So I would recommend actually creating an herbal formula. You could do a tincture formula, which would basically putting different herbs in an alcohol solution, a solvent essentially, for about 30 days. And you do that with the lunar cycles to calibrate the energetics of that tincture, and you create medicine that way. And also doing hot water extraction, doing a decoction with these herbs. If you don't have access to the whole herb, then you can just do hot water or cold water friction extractions that are basically powders of reishi mushroom, Ganoderma lucidum. And by the way, reishi mushroom was traditionally called the mushroom of immortality, or the herb of immortality, because above all other herbs in the world, all other substances that you could put into your body, according to Chinese wisdom and herbology, this mushroom was the most revered. It was the most in alignment with our cosmic destiny. And it was also called the herb of spiritual potency for this reason, that it's a Shen herb. It helps us calibrate our spiritual directive in the world, calibrate our emotional resonance, and how we're showing up in the world, essentially our goals and visions for ourselves in the world. And if we're going to achieve our destiny in the world, we need to have a fortification strength. We need to have a strong immune system, and reishi mushroom helps. It helps plug into our white blood cells via what's called beta glucans. These are type of polysaccharides that help to plug in, kind of like a USB port, into our white blood cells and download or upload immune protective information. Chaga mushroom, another incredible protective mushroom. In fact, chaga mushroom is probably the most powerful anti-mutagenic substance that we know of, especially when you do it in a tincture form, when you do it in a dual extract form, you do it in a hot water decocted form, anything like that, and you break down the chitin fibers and you get the medicinal properties out of it. And I know for a fact, because I've played with chaga for years. My blood is soaked with chaga mushroom. I mean, it's amazing. It's coursing through my veins, essentially. I'm in love with chaga, and it's the most powerful anti-cancer herb there is that we know of, according to the research out there. Right? You can look that up. It's the highest source of something called superoxide dismutase, which is one of the most powerful anti-inflammatory, antioxidant enzymes that is known in human biology. And then also there's astragalus. Astragalus is well revered in Chinese history and all the herbal systems. Astragalus, although it's intrinsically a Chinese herb, is well known. And one of the things about astragalus is that it does have those polysaccharides in it to help inform your immune system. And another thing is that it's epigenetic protective. It has something called astragaloside 1 all the way to 6. Astragaloside 6 is what we've, in the longevity or the anti-aging world, have deemed the telomerase rejuvenator. We have telomeres, which are basically the caps that attach to our chromosomes that get claved off or oxidized as the aging process ensues. As we're influenced by oxidative stress, as we're influenced by the gravitational pull of the atmospheric pressure, as we go through the stress of life, those telomeres start to break off, and they cause a fusing between the chromosomes and essentially cause a DNA double helix cloggage, like kind of if your red blood cells were to fuse together, it would create a clumping, right? That's kind of what's happening at the DNA level. And astragalus is one of those herbs that has been studied in being an anti-aging herb to help protect from that DNA oxidation. These three herbs used in combination could be the most powerful formulaic approach that you use for creating a buffering system between you and the stress of our atmosphere.